You become the strongest person that you know through your hardship. That's who's going to build you, is yourself, Believe in yourself. There's always going to be somebody else that believes in you as well. All right, let's do this.
The Candid Community podcast would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people of the Kulin Nation as the traditional custodians of the lands and waterways in the area now known as Merri-bek. We pay respects to their elders past, present and emerging, as well as to all First Peoples communities who significantly contribute to the life of the area. It has always and will always be Aboriginal land. Through this podcast series, we will provide space to listen to our residents and hear their candid stories and history with Merri-bek. These stories are those of our residents' lived experiences. The views, thoughts and opinions expressed in these episodes are those of the individuals interviewed and do not represent the position of Merri-bek City Council. The Candid Community podcast is made possible thanks to funding from the Department of Families, Fairness and Housing under the Local Partnerships Program supporting multicultural communities throughout coronavirus. This episode of the Candid Community podcast contains sensitive language that may cause distress. Please take care of yourself. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome back to the Candid Community podcast, where today we will be joined by Mariella Teuira, a resident of Merri-bek who has come to share her candid story. Welcome, Mariella. Would you mind telling us a bit about yourself?
My name is Mariella Teuira. I am a local resident to Glenroy, been a local resident for 23 years. Went to school at Box Forest, Glenroy campus, then Oak Park, and then back to Code, which is currently the Merri-bek site. I also have 4 children and 1 grandson and 1 granddaughter on the way.
That's very exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Can you tell us more about your upbringing? I understand you're a resident of the Glenroy area for a very long time, and that you said you were a student at the Box Forest and Koori School. Would you mind telling us more about what your experience there was like?
Yeah, so previous to that, I lived in Broadmeadows. So during the Kennett years, they shut down a few schools. So I was attending high school at Glenroy, Box Forest campus. That closed down, and then I moved to Oak Park campus. At the time, I had a lot of issues of my own, which come into like a lot of my mental health, my behavioural problems at the time. A victim of sexual abuse and rape as well at the time, so I mentally wasn't in the right place. I was asked politely to leave, and then I found myself at Code, the Koori Open Door Education, the only school that would actually take me at the time, so which I'm thankful for to this day.
And that school has closed down now?
Yes, so it closed down a few years back now, about 12 years, 14 years ago now. So at the time, the Code School was a very small knit school. It was from prep to year 12. I was in year 10 at the time. It was a great school. We had elders in the room. So if you knew you mucked up, you had an elder pipe up and go, hey, so, which was fantastic, because a lot of these kids that were going there, like myself, had behavioural or, had been in the justice system or, part of human services back then, DHHS, now it's called. So everybody had a complex issue at the time. And then we had elders in the room, teachers who were more youth workers who understood us, who gave us the opportunity, and it felt good to be at a place where we were safe and accepted for who we were.
And when the school was closing down, you were one of the people protesting to keep it open. Is that right?
Yeah. So that's actually a funny story to that. So I was asked politely to leave at the time at Code only because I was 14 and pregnant. But the great thing is I gave birth at 15 and have a very successful son now, and nobody would think, wow, was that young single mum back then? So I was asked politely to leave, and around the whole concept of why the government wanted to close the Merri-bek site, which is still the Code School, so it's the same school, but just changed names. That school in itself they class it as dumping ground education centre. It was a school that empowered young people. Our numbers were really low, but that was only because of the Department of Education were pre-selecting who we could enrol in the school. So there was only 11 students left at the end, and 2 of those were my brothers. At the time, they were in year 8 and year 7, or 8 and 9, I think, at the time. So they were one of the last students there. I had to keep that school open. I had to fight for that school because there was no other school that was going to take my brothers. There really wasn't. They come with their own complex issues. No other school would take them. So I joined the picket line. I opened the stadium, which I lived there for about 6 months with my children. My youngest was only 3 at the time. So 3, 4, 12 and a 15-year-old. Living at the school with other Aboriginal elders as well was fantastic. It was more of a family to keep this open for these kids, keep that site for the Indigenous people, for our young people. We needed the site. So it was disheartening to lock those gates in November, but we did that. We had to, but the strength and watching the young people come through there has been amazing. But also at the same time, after we locked the gates, I think it was only about a month later, we lost 3 of our young people who got into a car accident on Pascoe Road. 2 of them were Indigenous, young people who were staying at the school with us, who were there in the drop-in centre with us. So it really knocked down a lot of us as the leaders, especially myself, Dottie Bamblett, a really powerful young leader. Barb, one of our elders, Barb Williams. It really affected us, having to bury young people. And sometimes you think, maybe if we still had the space open, this wouldn't have happened. These young people would have been driving around. They wouldn't have been in a stolen car, whatever the reason is. So then, that's where we pushed on, and we now have Itiki. That's where that grew from. Yep.
That brings me to my next question. Can you tell us more about the Itiki Club and what you do there?
Yep, so Itiki Sporting Club, so we're based out in Glenroy Tennis Club, just adjacent to ATC Cook Reserve or Glenroy Bowls. We've been running programs for high-risk disadvantaged youth for about close to 10 years now.
And how did you start working with young people?
So we run sporting programs. So the vehicle is the sports program to re-engage our young people back into education or employment. So we create programs like basketball, netball, we train, and they also play in social competitions as well. And this is a daily event really, so there's different programs on different days. Yeah.
And have you always been interested in working directly with the community?
Yeah, I have. At a very young age, like I mentioned earlier, I was pregnant at 14, had my son when I was 15, so, been homeless, been through that pathway. And when I was about 16, 17, I had my first job when I was about 15 because I had my son, he was 8 months old, I was working. And I was just like, I don't want to do this, I want to do youth work, really do. And I thought, because, I dropped out really early, year 10. I had a baby, I really want to do youth work. So during my journey, I did factory work, courier work, and I just didn't find the love for it. And then I started e-ticking. And then I just went, hey, when I hit 30 and e-ticket was up and running, and I was like, I'm going to uni. So I went to uni, and I'm now a fully qualified youth support worker, community worker, and I love it because I just do it, because I understand the journey. I understand, feeling discomfort, repeating my story, or understanding that the journey is not always straight. The road is never straight, Your road curves and whatever it is. Like even at my age, I've had to deal with mental health issues, due to my abuse at a young age, growing up as well. So yeah, it's been great. It's been great to watch young people grow as well. Like you get them at this very vulnerable stage in their life, and you look back a couple of years later and I giggle because and then they're talking to me and I'm like, wow, did you have some sort of input to this change? So it's a great feeling, yeah.
If there was one thing you could say to any young person listening to today's episode, what would that be?
No matter what you're going through, there's always somebody there, you know. Myself, I used to think, you know, the road is definitely not straight. You're going to go off that road, you know, but you've got to own that journey. And once you own your journey and you understand it, we all make mistakes. Nobody is perfect. I can tell you I'm definitely not perfect. You know, and it's funny because like a lot of the young people, when they need to hear my story, I tell them my story and they go, wow, really? And I'm like, yeah. So you only see the 1 week ahead of you as a young person does. You've got your whole life ahead of you. You just got to get through this little hump in life. And this is going to be your story that you're going to tell. And it also becomes, you think right now it's, you know, you're not strong, but you become the strongest person that you know through your hardship. That's who's going to build you, is yourself, you know. Believe in yourself. There's always going to be somebody else that believes in you as well.
That's beautiful. We are also being joined by a young person that Mariella works directly with at the Itiki Sports Club. Thank you for joining today. Would you mind telling us how you first got involved with Itiki?
I joined Itiki when I was in year 5, so I think 11 years old. I joined to play netball and I'm playing ever since. Yeah.
And what is your favourite thing to do at the sports club?
My favourite thing to do at Itiki is to play netball with my team, but like I also like being a part of all the fundraisers and the events that they put on.
And how would you describe Mariella?
I would describe Mariella as one of the most hardworking persons I know. She's caring, nurturing. She's like basically a mother to all of us. For Itiki, she'll go above and beyond. And she's just someone like myself, like young Polynesians who we look up to and who we love and respect. She's changed a lot of our lives for the better, and she's the reason I am who I am today. Like she's made a better version of myself. She's created a family in Itiki. She's created lifelong friends for me and everyone in my team, and yeah.
And what are some of your favourite memories from your time with Itiki?
Oh yeah, so 2019 we went to play netball in New Zealand and we went on tour. And during that time, it made us closer with my teammates, and we did a lot of fun things as well. We travelled to New Zealand to play netball.
New Zealand, wow, that's amazing. Do you mind telling us more about your time overseas?
So the player criteria wasn't on your skill level. It was an opportunity. So it was an opportunity for these 10 young players to go out there and see the world and break this cycle and to be able to travel, get on a plane and look above whatever's happening at home, above whatever's happening in their life. Then we had young people that had mental health, anxiety. It might be a young person that come from a sibling of 7. Everybody was picked on their merits of whatever they needed then to empower them to move forward in life. So it was great to give these girls 10-day tour from Wellington out through Auckland. But during that time, before they even got there, they had to sign a contract. That contract stated that they had to be at every training. So it was like a professional contract. It was empowering them and giving them the skills to move forward in life and to believe in them. So that a part of that contract was they had to come to training. They trained twice a week. They played twice a week in competitive levels over here. They also had to fundraise. So we fundraise in 6 months. We raised $47,000 to get these girls over in 6 months. One of the biggest fundraisers they did was the dinner dance. That dinner dance raised $17,000 in one night. And doing that, though, they had to culturally... So they all come from all different cultures as well and all walks. So everybody had their own story. They didn't need to share it with their players, but they become a sisterhood. They shared it with each other. So going overseas with myself, and then we had another head coach with me as well, and then we had Mama Bear. Our Mama Bear, who was, because we have to do the logistics of everything, and then we had Mama Bear just to make sure we were missing anything like, you know, the love of connection or loneliness, being away from their family, being, you know, in a different country altogether. So Mama Bear was the mama to the girls. We were, you know, I was leading the girls, the bus driver. And then we had our head coach as well. So these girls had to go through a whole regime for about 8 months. And the outcomes was, when we come back, you know, what do you think?
Yeah, I think we just like, it made our bond stronger. Like, it was strong before, but now it's even more stronger. It changed the way we played netball. Like, we were more confident in each other, which made we played better. It made a lot of us more confident. We've like learned a few things during the trip. Like, we learned how to say kia ranga in Cook Islands to welcome ourselves. And yeah,
I think talking about that, so we were in, I think, middle of the tour. We were in Rotorua. We knew we were going to Auckland was the next leg. And we had one of my community where I come from, the Cook Islands, but the island, we got 15 islands, Mitiaro. They were hosting us. And I said, oh, girls, I'm going to have to teach you how to say kia ora, which means hello, a welcoming, and their name, and how to say kia ora, tuku nei ngō koe, which means my name is. They all said it so clearly that my mamas and papas over there were like clapping their hands, and they were like, yous are all Mitiaros now, yous can speak, and I'm so proud of yous. And they were like, you know, we had girls that were Asian, Italian, we had Māori, Samoan, Cook Island, and they were just like, no, yous are all Cook Islanders now, you can speak now. So that was pretty much one of the highlights of the event. But I think one of the biggest highlights for me was one of the young people we took from here had severe anxiety and mental health issues, and she couldn't be around even training. She could train, she would play, but she would go straight in the car afterwards here in Australia. So it was really hard, and 10 days away from her support network, her mother, was hard for her. You know, down to like the last 3 days, even getting to the airport, we thought she wasn't going to get on that plane. But she got on that plane. The girl that we delivered back to her mother could stand up in a room of 40 people and do an open speech, and her mother just sat there crying and was so proud of her. We bring back an independent young woman who believed in herself, that knew, I am more than what I thought I was. So it's not only about the sport, it's about building on the young person. It's about giving them their strengths, whether it's this netball program, for these girls, believing in themselves and moving forward to the next stage of their life. And it's been great just to be a part of that.
And are there any other favourite moments you would like to share with our audience today?
car rides were amazing. So going to the game, we'll just talk about our lives and what's been happening, and yeah, we get the best advice from Mariella. And then coming back from the game, we'll talk about what we could have done in our game to help us, the funny moments in the game, angry moments, I don't know. We just talk about anything. It's just like car rides, like the car rides made the game. I don't know, like, yeah. I think if I went in a different car, it would have just been a bad game for me.
Do you want to share some anecdotes from the car rides?
I think talking about the car rides, so like when we started this, I've blown up a few cars because we do a lot of Ks, pickups, drop-offs, games and things. So when we were in New Zealand, we were driving this big flash Mercedes, big flash bus. And I said to the girls when we got on the plane, I said, back to reality, girls, back to the old territory in Kluger. No more flashy, seats, leather seats, and, turn on the car if it starts, or, make sure that the music's right, and no swearing on the music. But I think it is, the most powerful thing is the journey. It's not about what happens on court. It's what happens before the game. It's funny because as a coach, I will know that player is going to have a good game or a bad game before they've even taken the court. Because when you're in that car ride, you forget what's happened at school, or you're talking about, I had a bad day, or whatever happened with that girl group and you're chatting away. But then you've forgotten about that because you're talking with other young people that have the same issue in the car. So when they get on court, they're already mentally going, we got this, girls, we got it, And then it's a laugh when they come back, and some of the things they've taught me, you know, and some of the things I've seen when they've learnt things at school, I'm like, whoa, girls, really? Or you know, the guys are the same. So it's always about the journey, you know. And the funny thing is, one of my missions when I first started Itiki was, we will get a bus, because I found that, you know, blowing up 3 cars, and it was just too much. Or we couldn't have like all the players in the one car. So we finally got a bus, you know, with all the hard work. So we finally got one. So now it's more interesting, right? Because now it's one car that everybody goes in to training, games, or leadership, or whatever it is. But that's where it happens. You know, it's not about, you know, getting that shot. It's not about getting that defense shot or winning with us. It's not about winning. You're winning in life when you've given it a go. You're winning in life when you've taken that call or you've got it in the car. Even if you're having a shitty day, and I see this a lot when I rock up and I pick them up and they, you know, they slam the door or they've forgotten something. I've known that day or two I haven't seen them for, something's happened in that little time, you know. Or when they get in and they're happy and they're throwing their bag in, and I'm like, okay, here we go, something happened interesting at school. So it's always about the journey, yeah.
It's always about the journey. I love that. So if there is a young person listening, how would you encourage them to get involved with Itiki? What can they do to join?
So if you're a young person, you want to get involved, just jump onto our Facebook. We got a Facebook page there. Send me a message and I'll reply to you straight away. So it might be that you want to chat, or it might be that you want to be part of a sporting program. Even if you don't want to be part of the sporting program, you want to do like our work ready program or our leadership program, get in touch with us, or our Instagram as well, which is Itiki Sporting Club. So that's spelled ITIKI Sporting Club. Hit us up on there, and again, I will reply to your message. Most of our referrals come from word of mouth from our young people. So you do not need to come through a referral. We're not a governed body, so we're all volunteers. We do it because we love it. We're not there to judge you. That's your space. And like my young people always say, once that gate closes, that's their space. You know, it's all about them. We just ask that you be respectful to everybody else and whatever their issues they're going through as well, and just come and give it a crack.
And if someone listening was wanting to help Itiki, how can they show their support?
So the same way, we do need a lot more mentors, and we do need a lot more workers as well, because it's a really small number of volunteers that are doing it. So if you're even studying or in placement and you'd like to do a placement, please get in touch, because we're always looking for people to support us and help us along the way, because it gets pretty hard. So the same way as well, head through, or you can Google us and you'll get my number off there. Reach out, because we're always looking for mentors, coaching staff, even people just want to come out, check out what we do, have a chat with the young people, hang around for a bit. More than happy to come down. So our space is usually open after 4 p.m. But your best way is give us a call or shoot us a text, tell us a little bit about what you want to do, and then we can go from there.
Thank you for coming in and sharing your candid stories today. The Itiki Initiative is an incredible network that you've created, and if any of our listeners are feeling empowered to get involved, please check out the episode description to find out more.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks again for listening to the Candid Community podcast. If any of the topics discussed has caused distress, please reach out to the number of support networks listed in each of our episode descriptions. Take care, and until next time, keep it candid.